From the Chicago Sun-Times newsroom, I'm Natasha Korecki, and this is Off Message. This week, we had some very shocking news.
Karen Lewis has a serious illness.
Karen Lewis is not only dropping out of the mayoral race, but she's facing a cancerous brain tumor. Friends and foes alike in the city really have rallied around her, and we here at Off Message wish her well. And she did once promise me she'd be on the show, so we hope she's here soon. But we wanted to reflect a little bit about what a controversial and electrifying figure that Karen Lewis has been. You were there, Roz, because you were education reporter. You were there before she even was the president of Chicago Teachers Union. Do you remember her back in that time?
Well, she was a chemistry teacher at King College Prep that had joined a group of teachers who were opposing then CTU President Marilyn Stewart. They were looking for someone to go out and speak and articulate their issues, particularly over school closings, and out of a group of very thoughtful teachers, they picked Karen to be their spokesman. So you would go to CTU meetings, and Karen would be the one who would be stepping up in front of the press, articulating what the teachers group was upset about. She got her sea legs there, talking to the media on a recurring basis.
Did you know that she might be a rising star at that point?
Well, she had one thing that a lot of people don't have, and that's a sense of humor. She was able to make a point and also make you laugh. And so she was very engaging, and she was also very authentic. You got the feeling that Karen was talking to you genuinely, passionately. There was no artifice. And she also came well-researched. Like a teacher, she had done her homework. Put all that together into a package, and it propelled her forward to become head of the CTU.
And I mean, were you surprised at all that she was later a mayoral possible, and that polls were showing that she would do very well? She was polling above Rahm Emanuel.
I was surprised because she told me once that she didn't have a big enough ego to run for mayor.
So Lauren, does she have a big ego?
She's just tough. Years ago she was a stand-up comedian, which is something where
she was a stand-up comedian?
Yeah, she did stand-up, like briefly, I think. I mean, I don't know for how long it was, but that was one of the many jobs she tried out before she ended up a teacher. So I mean, you can just imagine this woman up on stage, like people throwing mean things at her and just heckling, and
she handled it all.
She just handled it all.
There was obviously some controversial sides to her as well.
Look, it wasn't just that she was advocating for her members, although obviously she did that very effectively and really didn't rise to prominence with a broader public and nationally until the teachers' strike and then later on the school closings. But her confrontations with Mayor Emanuel on behalf of her members and their self-interest is one thing, but I do think that she made a number of comments that indicated that she had a message that went beyond her members, that she probably would have articulated much more extensively had she run for mayor. And I think it's a very leftist philosophy.
And we have more in common with our children and our parents than we do with these rich people.
It's an idea that us, meaning most people, against them, meaning maybe the 1% or the 5%. She talked more specifically recently about a LaSalle Street tax.
I would say that the mayor should ask his rich friends at the CME and the Board of Trade to pay their fair share.
That would have generated some money for schools. And so she definitely had a sort of a Robin Hood approach, and that appealed to a number of people in Chicago. They might call themselves progressives.
Let's go backtrack a little bit to the teacher strike, because that's right. That's when she really rose to prominence in the city. That's when she really became a household name.
The assault on public education started here. It needs to end here. Yeah.
What was her role? What was she like dealing with at the time? How did she rally the troops?
Well, one thing that was really unusual about that strike and the negotiations is that Karen told me once that she doesn't have a poker face. And yet she was able to sit across the table from the head of the CPS officials, and she had the guts to take the union out on strike and to face down the mayor. Parents from poor areas and even from affluent areas came to understand her message. I think it started to resonate beyond that strike and to carry through to this day. And there are parents to this day that are still talking about school closings. They might support Mayor Emanuel, but Karen made an impression with them, and her objections about school closings and the way they were done.
She was just really good with the public at talking about, this isn't just about my members. It was about, this is your children. These are, our classroom conditions are your kids' classroom conditions, and she was really able to resonate with the public in that way.
These are their policies, not ours.
I was talking with a professor this week who's interviewed the folks who were in the room during the strike, and he said that, she would keep having to leave the room to take offers back to the members. And the bargaining team she showed up with was 35 people big, because she wanted to have this wider buy-in so that it wasn't just about her or even the leaders. It was about everyone in the union and then everybody with kids in school.
One thing that really struck me about her hospitalization and the days that followed, her diagnosis did eventually leak out. It didn't for quite some time. Is that a testament to the loyalty of the people around her and how loyal they are?
It was incredible. It was incredible. No one could be cracked. Nobody through text, nobody through maybe I won't use your name. I mean, I tried and tried and tried and tried and tried. They love and adore her and are very defensive and protective of her.
Was that how it always was?
She has very loyal followers behind her, and I think a lot of that is because, as Lauren mentioned, she believes in the democratic process and giving everybody a voice, and so they appreciate that. I think the only thing you can say that would have been guaranteed if Karen had been able to run is that it would have sold a lot of newspapers and been great media, because she is a soundbite machine. You call her, she answers the phone. It is very different than the way Mayor Emanuel's media people operate, with layers and layers of filters for every piece of information.
Much as we might love that, I'm sorry, that she does that, there are people that had the impression, that's why I hesitate to say how effective a candidate she would have been. I think recently when she was talking about being a candidate and started the exploratory committee, there was a lot more discipline, a lot more care into what she was going to say, because other times I think, the comments that she made a few years ago about Arnie Duncan, making fun of his lisp. And
she dialed it back a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to be open, but also I think it created some situations where there was an impression that she was just more extreme and not as, there are people that would come up to you and say she's crazy, and I think if you know her, there's no way you would think that. She's a very, very intelligent,
well, it is interesting because
person.
When she was during the teacher strike, she was very polarizing, was she not? I mean, there are people who loved her or hated her.
Yes, she was. I mean, she was strident. She came out and called the mayor the murder mayor.
He is the murder mayor. Look at the murder rate in this city. He's murdering schools. He's murdering good jobs. He's murdering housing. I don't know what else to call him.
Very strong language. As you said, people tended to either love her or hate her.
Okay, well, let's wrap up the session with our quotes of the week. Why don't we start over there?
Let's start with a very brief quote, "Contribute now." It was the last two words of an email that Bob Fioretti's campaign sent out within about 90 minutes of Karen Lewis announcing that she could not continue exploring running for mayor, would not run for mayor. And I thought that was crass. I thought he should have waited and maybe split that up into two separate emails.
Yeah. Lauren.
I'm going off the transit beat here, hopping onto your beat. The woman who, with her boyfriend, spotted a divvy bike on the Dan Ryan. All of a sudden, my boyfriend's like, take a picture, take a picture. I didn't even know what I was pulling my phone out for, and then realizes there's a woman driving a divvy bike on the Dan Ryan.
And my quote of the week comes from the latest gubernatorial debate. Governor Pat Quinn alleging that Bruce Rauner would be outsourcing jobs, and his quote about that was, quote, "His jobs program is a great program for China, India, and the Philippines. It's not helping us here on the south side, the west side, or any side of Illinois."
And I'll circle back to the mayor's race with William Kelly announced that he put in $100,000 into the campaign the same day that Karen Lewis announced that she was officially not running. And he said he did that, which blows the caps in the race to quote unquote level the playing field in the race. So with that, thank you for joining us this week on Off Message, and we will see you next week.